Okay. So I just wanted to do a brief explanation of the progression for reverse tabletop. This is starts from reverse marching as kind of the first progression to really feel the candles in that supine position, and the reverse tabletop um, progression, which is what we've done so far in the series, then would move once you feel strong and confident in this position, then you would move into a full tabletop. But for now, we're just going to focus on reverse tabletop. So, first off, we're going to talk a little bit about some positioning, but also understanding what is going on in your body is really important. And so, for many of us, we will need to bolster. How do you know if you have to bolster? First, lay down on your back and sorry to pop my back. Woo. So lay down on your back and feet flat on the floor, and just notice if in this position what's happening in your pelvis. So in my pelvis, I'm in a tucked position. My pubic bone is higher than my ASIS bones. In other words, if I had a pencil on my pubic bone, here's a pen. If I had a pencil on my pubic bone, it's kind of facing more towards me, right? And sure, I could go all different directions with it. To untuck or to come into more of a tilt, that's where our pubic bone and our ASIS bones are in the same plane. And at that point, once you find your neutral pelvis, then notice what's happening in your ribs. In my body, my thoracic mobility still needs some work, something I have difficulty with. So for me to come into a neutral position in my pelvis, I need to bolster because my bottom ribs are not on the floor. So I'm going to put something underneath my head here so that when I'm in this neutral position, my pelvis, my ribs are now touching the floor. Depending on what's going on in your body, you may need way more bolstering than that. It just really depends. You just have to kind of start feeling around in your body to notice where it's at and what kind of support you may or may not need. Great. So once you've found your neutral pelvis, your pelvis is not tucked and it's not tilted or untucked. It's neutral. So another way to think about this is if you are finding a neutral pelvis and your ribs are just kind of popping off the ground, you maybe aren't sure of something for some reason if your ribs are not touching the floor, but your ribs are popping off the ground, or your neck is kind of, your chin is kind of coming closer to your chest, that means that you need to bolster. Good. So put something underneath your head. And from here, we're going to move into the reverse tabletop. And I'm just going to use my notes to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. From here, it depends on where you are with your candles and up arrow. The candles and the up arrow especially are really important in this move. So you might want to just be with an as if, meaning that you don't actually move anything in your body. That's more with the reverse marching. So if you've been working on the reverse marching and you are still kind of tilting all sorts of ways or using your feet to get your opposite foot to get your leg up, that's something you can continue to work on. So for reverse tabletop, we're going to bring one leg in. So you're going to inhale, exhale, candles, up arrow, bring one leg in, and do the same thing with the next leg. Notice if by bringing that other leg in, you're bulging like this, or you're bracing a lot, like as if someone's going to punch you in the stomach and you're kind of protecting your body. Notice if those things are happening. And if that's the case, just maybe stick with reverse marching until you feel strong and confident in that move. Good. I'm not going to go into further into reverse marching because that's not what this video is about. Okay, so your pelvis, your knees come into towards your chest. Your pelvis is in a tucked position here. So from here, I want you to inhale, exhale, candle's breath. So we're inhaling into the ribs, feeling that candle's up arrow. So we're pulling in and up. And from here, I want you to slightly untuck your pelvis. So as you can see, my knees at this point are kind of forward. They're kind of ahead of my ASI bones. And that's fine. From here, if you feel pretty good there, you can go a little bit further. Always candles up arrow here. Good. And just hold it there for just a few breaths. Really feeling your core engaging here. Now, if when you bring your knees a little bit further away from your body, you start doing this, kind of popping off the floor, your ribs pop up, your body's just kind of going along for the ride, or you're bulging or bracing. Don't go so far and just stick to a slightly closer, and actually probably just stick with the reverse marching. If you feel comfortable here with your knees just kind of over your ASI bones, from there you can start bringing one leg with a candles up arrow and then the other legs. First, always candles up arrow here. Good. And that's really all the move is. So the modifications are really just either sticking with this kind of moving the knees away from the body without bulging. Do you see how my abs kind of start pushing in and up? There's kind of this doming here, right? If I'm not really engaged, let's see if I can get this. This is bulging. This is bracing. So my ribs are kind of coming down, and there's a lot of tension, but it's not activation. I mean, it's activating, but it's really just tense. If that's where you're at, just stick with the getting your knees above the ASIS bones instead of now working on getting your knees further away from you. Good. So that's really all this move is, and this is just we're just working on the progression to the full tabletop, which is here. And we're just not there right now. We would be working on kind of toe taps in this tabletop position, which I don't feel comfortable continuing right now. But that's really all it is. So you bring your knees into the chest, hold them there, untuck the pelvis, handles up arrow here, and slightly bring the knee away from you. And then you up arrows, candles, slightly bring the other knee away from you. Notice if your ribs want to pop up. And if they do, bring your knees back in and just focus on getting both knees slightly away from your body. Once you're kind of in that full expression of the move, you'll be able to really just engage in your low abs here without gripping in your hip flexors. So that's the other trick that you want to make sure you're not doing. You want to make sure you're not gripping in the hip flexors to keep yourself here, right? So if that's kind of an issue for you, then I want you to just stick to exhaling up arrows and moving slightly your knees, away from your body, and then bringing them back in. And just hanging out in this position for a few seconds, few breaths. Finding some relaxation, releasing any tension you may be holding in your upper body, and just doing that a few times. Once you feel comfortable, which that might take a few weeks of doing this, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, then you can move into the actually getting the legs away from the body one at a time. So that's really it. If you have any questions, As always, please just let me know. Okay? Thank you.